Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar. I'm Hayley, Head of Partnerships, and I'm joined today by Claire from our Professional Services team and Tom from our Payment Orchestra partner, Bridge. We've recently partnered with Bridge, and today Tom will do an intro and an overview of their products and services, and Claire will also give visibility of the service available in our platform, iSell via Bridge. The session today is being recorded, and there's a Q&A functionality at the bottom of your screens to add any questions as we go through, and we'll cover off any questions at the end. But for now, I'm going to hand over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Haley. I'm just going to bring up some slides. Perfect. Hopefully you can see that. Let me know if not. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of background around Bridge, some of our customer base, what we offer, and then a little bit about what we're doing with travel tech, but then I'll leave Claire to kind of talk about that in more detail afterwards. Just before I start from my side, so my name is Tom Voden. Have worked for Bridge for about 4 years now, and my role is really leading a number of parts of our kind of go-to-market function. So sales team, our partnerships team, and our existing customer team as well. So really kind of all things go-to-market, and been working with travel tech for a couple of years now as well on the partnership and getting things up and running. Perfect. So appreciate that most people on the webinar probably haven't heard of Bridge before. So just to frame kind of ourselves as a company, we are based in Edinburgh, but operating pretty globally. We've been around since 2018, and we were founded out of the kind of travel and transit industry. So our founder Brian worked for Stagecoach, the transit operator, and was kind of managing all of their technology globally and their payment stack and saw a real need to kind of step out of that business and start Bridge, which I'll kind of come on to more detail around, obviously, but it's really kind of with the founding principle of helping large merchants manage their kind of complex payment stack. I joined Bridge about 4 years ago. We were about 20 people then. We're well over 100 now. So we've had a significant growth over the last few years, and have really been seeing success in a number of kind of merchant verticals. You'll see some of our customer logos on the right-hand side. So just to kind of frame where we typically work with kind of mid to large to enterprise merchants. As I say, pretty globally, but obviously being a UK and European headquartered company, we have a number of really large customers here in Europe. And we do that across kind of three verticals. So one of our core verticals being travel. So you'll see logos on screen such as Travel Counsellors and Kenwood Travel, Brooklyn Travel Group, who obviously are a travel tech user as well. But we also operate in other verticals, retail. So we've got like the Hut Group as one of our customers, Resident Advisor, who are a ticketing merchant. We also do a number of kind of customers' payment stacks in the gambling industry, only in tier one, fully regulated gambling. But the reason that I always like to call that out is to really show the kind of scale and volume capability of our platform. We work with merchants who do a lot of payment volume with a lot of big peaks and spikes and big sporting events and those kind of things. We're really built to work with those large companies and have really reliable technology that can handle those kind of volumes and throughputs. So that's just a little bit around Bridge. Before I dive into kind of more around the actual proposition and what we do, we've recently commissioned some research where we basically gone to the market and we've spoken to a number of merchants in many verticals actually, but also in the travel vertical. I'm going to ask some questions around their payment stack, what their kind of strategy is, what the blockers are, how they're managing resilience, kind of how they're improving their customer experience, all that kind of stuff. And there's just a few results that I wanted to go through that hopefully help frame how we kind of see where Bridge and Bridge and Travel Tech will fit. So diving into that, there's a lot around kind of payment complexity in travel. So appreciating that most travel merchants are not payment experts and they shouldn't have to be. You know, payments is a really complex space. There's always kind of competing demands from regulation, from the payment schemes, from new payment methods, from customers demanding new ways to pay. It's pretty complex. And really, what we're seeing is that that's pretty tricky for a number of our customers and merchants we're speaking to handle. Um, However, there's a lot of merchants using payments in a lot of cool ways. So when we've surveyed travel merchants, we've seen that actually 71% of travel merchants use more than one and actually four to five payment processors across different markets. However, of those, most of them are still using one as their kind of primary payment provider. So when we're saying payment provider or processor on screen, we're talking about your kind of card gateway acquirer. So whilst, some of you may have multiple, actually you're probably still doing the majority of your volume through one, and don't have the ability to kind of choose what transactions you want to put through which providers to save costs, to optimize, acceptance rate, to improve customer experience and all that kind of stuff. In addition, one of the other things that we're seeing a lot of is payment providers having outages, having technical problems, certain types of transactions failing more than others. And most merchants in the travel space, 86%, don't have fully automated real-time failovers in place. So what that means is if one of your or your only payment provider goes down, you have no ability to kind of save those transactions, send them via a different provider to make sure that your customers can still buy what they wanted to buy, and not have a load of friction and for yourselves not have potentially lost revenue or certainly revenue that you then got to kind of take an operational cost to go and chase through phoning up the customer or whatever. Actually, a lot of that can be managed through payments orchestration, which I'll come on to. From a consumer perspective, this is the kind of other angle that I'm sure you guys are seeing is there's a lot of demand for new payment methods. So 72% of travel consumers would consider using an alternative payment method for travel purchases. When we talk about alternative payment methods, we're thinking about things like Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, wallets, open banking, buy now, pay later. Certainly in specific demographics as well, there's obviously a real propensity to want to use certain types of payment methods, which give the customer more control, which they prefer to use because they use them on other types of websites. And that's certainly pulling through in the research we did as well. The other thing is, to my point before, if you look at that kind of right-hand stat, customers want checkout to be really quick. And when something goes wrong, they're probably not going to hang around very long before they decide to abandon and go and buy elsewhere. Now, appreciate that in the travel space, they probably spent a while choosing their holiday and building that up, and it's a little bit less of a kind of I'm just going to go and buy that elsewhere, and probably more of a this is just a much more painful experience for me to have to now phone up and check out. Um, and then finally, on the research perspective, we're seeing a lot around kind of the cost and the pain of technical integration, and also how payments is really prohibiting, new market entry, new product launches, all that kind of stuff. So, 44% say technical integration is the single biggest challenge when expanding payment capabilities, e.g., most merchants want to be adding new payment options and doing new things with their payment stack, but actually the technology side of it is really painful. And actually, it's prohibitive in a lot of cases. And it's obviously very costly and time consuming as well when you've probably got limited development resource and you want to be focusing that on, the core of your business, not the payment side of your business. In addition, that bottom stat kind of alludes to what I was saying before in terms of 54% are saying that payment limitations prevented or delayed their expansion into new markets. So, you might want to launch into a new market, you might want to launch a new brand, a new product line, new type of offering. However, you've got to have the payment stack in place to be able to do that. And often the kind of technology side of that, the speed of contracting, onboarding, setup, testing, all that kind of stuff can delay your kind of company strategy, which is obviously where never want to be as a merchant. So, kind of in conclusion of that, and in conclusion of what we see on screen now, is kind of what we see as the specific travel pain points from a payment perspective, and certainly all of which we feel like we can solve. Pressure from all angles, a lot of integration and technology overheads. There's a lot of ambition to do more globally, but going global with payments means having to accept new payment methods, new payment providers. There's all of the kind of ongoing operational pain of chargebacks and fraud and pressure on tokenization, all those kind of things, which is, in our eyes, a bit of a perfect storm for travel merchants because it's a lot to kind of handle, understand, and deal with. So, how does Bridge kind of fit into that? How do we help and really try and take over a lot of that kind of challenge and really start to handle things on your behalf? So just stepping back, what is payment orchestration? The vision for payment orchestration is to be a technology layer that sits between you, the merchant, and all of your payment stack. So you today might have one payment provider or you might have five. But what you would do is you would connect into Bridge instead, and we will manage all of that downstream connectivity. So when I'm saying downstream connectivity, I mean all of your card payment gateways, acquirers, all of the different alternative payment methods, your fraud tools, different tokenization offerings, really any bit of technology that you need to aggregate to get into your payment stack. We take over that. So you just have one via Travel Tech, one hook into Bridge, and then we manage all of those payment providers. We give you the ability to turn on new ones, try them out, to start routing transactions, etc., which I'll come on to. But really, the idea is we become that kind of, in a way, outsourced payment stack for you that not only aggregates payment providers, but also then allows you to start to optimize your flows, save costs, do all that kind of good stuff. I think that one of the really key things to call out here is we're completely kind of independent as a technology platform. What I mean by that is we're never going to tell you which payment provider you should go with. We're not taking over your relationships with your payment providers. You still maintain those. You still negotiate your commercials directly with them. We are just that technology anchor point. So we're taking over the kind of most painful part, the technology side of things. I'm going to come back to this actually in a second. So I'll just quickly first touch on the kind of product suite that will bring it to life a little bit. So Bridge's offering is made up of five products. We are a pretty modular company, so you can decide to take bits of these. You don't have to take all of them. We've got customers who just use us for connectivity or just use us for tokenization, and we've got customers who use us for everything. So in terms of the five products in question, if I start at the top, Bridge Integrate is basically it's almost less of a product, it's how you actually connect into Bridge. Now, in the case of this webinar, we're talking and kind of in the context of the travel tech integration. So actually, this has made it a lot easier for you. Travel tech has built an integration into Bridge. They've done that using our hosted payment page. So what that means is you're able to access all the products I'm going to go through via the integration that already exists. And we'll come on to that a little bit, and I think Claire will touch on that a bit in terms of how that technology flow actually works. So, in context of this, think about Bridge Integrate as basically the connectivity into Bridge via Travel Tech that allows you to access everything I'm about to talk about. The second one is Bridge Connect, which I'm going to kind of go into more than the other products. And the reason being is that we find that in the travel space, and from our conversations with some of Travel Tech's merchants so far, actually, what we see as the biggest kind of advantage that Bridge can bring is just opening up a kind of marketplace of different payment providers and payment options that you guys could choose from if you wished. So Bridge Connect is basically our kind of ecosystem. It's our aggregator product. So if you're connected into Bridge via Travel Tech, you can in theory access, not only these logos you see on screen here, but a huge kind of directory of different payment providers, alternative payment methods, fraud tools, Visa, MasterCard scheme products, et cetera, et cetera. So really, through that one connectivity, we can kind of open that up for you. That has a load of benefits, right? So we can continue to manage your existing connectivity. Let's say you use WorldPay today as your acquirer and your gateway. We can continue to manage that and not impact it. It just moves over to a bridge connection. But then you can start to say, okay, actually, I want to enable a secondary provider and see how the two of them perform against each other. I want to start sending certain transactions in certain markets to certain providers. So, for example, you might think that you operate in France and Adyen is really strong in France. So you might say, okay, actually, I want to start sending my French transactions to Adyen. And you can do that all through the one connection, but keeping the core of your payment flow with who you have today. In addition, then from a payment method perspective, you can enable Apple Pay on any of the payment providers that we have. So in front of WorldPay, Checkout, Adyen, any of these payment providers, a whole host more, you can enable Apple and Google Pay in front of them. And then we have a whole host of other payment options, things like trust via open banking, PayPal, including PayPal Credit, Revolut Pay. I'm just naming the ones on screen. But if you go on our website, there's a kind of directory in the partnership section, and you'll be able to see a full list of all of the connections we have, which is a pretty long list, and globally includes a number of payment methods and providers, which are kind of more specific to certain markets around the world as well. The key thing with this is, back to that research, for you to enable a new payment provider today is probably a little bit more painful than it would be by doing it via Bridge because we've already got the integration. You've got the integration into travel tech. Therefore, we have the end-to-end integration that allows you to use these new payment providers already. And all you need to do is go and speak to them, on board with them, contract with them as you normally would, and agree commercials. And we'll manage all of that technology side for you. Just before I go back to kind of talk about the other products, I appreciate I'm jumping around a little bit here, but there's just one other product that's specifically within Connect that I wanted to call out. Claire's going to talk a bit around kind of installments and ongoing, like how that could be managed by Bridge and Travel Tech and our kind of plans around that. But we also have a specific product with Visa called Visa Installments, which we can enable for any card in front of any card PSP for any merchant who uses our hosted payment page, which is how Travel Tech has integrated into us. And the way that this works is Visa card issuers, so think about your bank who issues your card in your wallet, um, in the background are enabling installment plans for their customers. So let's say I have a credit card or a debit card. What that Visa issuer will do, e.g., HSBC will say, okay, Tom is a HSBC customer. On his existing credit and debit card, I'm going to enable him £1,000, £10,000 in kind of hidden Visa installments credit so that if he shops at a Visa installments merchant, he can split the payment into installment options. What then happens is if that's enabled in your checkout, I go in and I'm buying my holiday, I type in my card number, an API call goes in the background and says, is Tom eligible for installments? If yes, it basically pulls through installment plans that are specific to me, that are pre-approved, where the credit is managed by my own bank, who I've been banking with for years and knows me really well. And we will then show as Bridge those installment plans in the checkout. And it looks like it does on the right-hand side, basically, where I can choose to pay now or I can choose to split that payment into installments. Um, from your side, if I choose to pay that in installments, I click pay in three, I check out. You see a normal full card transaction, but I now have an installment plan set up between me and my issuing bank, so between me and HSBC. And when I go into my HSBC app, I'll see that I owe them X amount over 3 months in installments. But from your side, it's a normal standard card transaction. So it's a really nice product that we've enabled with a number of travel merchants already. I just wanted to call it out because we've had a lot of interest in kind of buy now, pay later and installments, and also a lot of your more traditional buy now, pay laters like Klarna and those kind of ones are very risk averse with travel. This product does work in travel, and it's one way that we can help kind of offer new payment options to your customers. So just jumping back to finish off the kind of other products here. So that was Bridge Connect. That's our kind of aggregator product. That's where you can really leverage the connectivity that we've built and that we're constantly expanding as we bring on new partners and new customers. Bridge Optimize is all around routing. So I've alluded to a couple of times you being able to say, okay, for certain types of transaction, I want to send them to certain payment providers. How it works is you'll have access to our portal, and then you'll go into the Bridge portal and you'll be able to set rules in effect that say, okay, if this is a credit card, if it's a corporate card, if it's, a Visa issued Lloyds Bank card from the UK, that's a debit card, send it to a certain provider. You can kind of take it down to any kind of level that you want, really detailed, specific rules, or you can do a lot higher level ones, which are things like just send 20% of my flow to this provider and 80% to this provider. It's really up to you and what you want to achieve. But what we see here is customers really trying to optimize for costs. So, sending certain types of transaction to providers where you've got better rates. That could be because their cross-border transactions, their Amex transactions, whatever it might be, you can kind of use our routing to optimize. Or you might be really focused on, I just want the highest transaction success rates as possible, so have the least customer friction. In that case, you might just want to send, certain types of transactions to certain providers without really considering the cost element. It's entirely up to you, but our portal allows you to go in and change those rules in real time, try things out, do a bit of testing, look at the data, and then ultimately make the decision on how you want to kind of set up that routing. The other thing we do there is resilience. So I spoke a little bit around having a lot of travel merchants only having one payment provider. If that payment provider experiences an outage, there's certain technical issues, there's latency, degradation. Often, all or a number of transactions will fail. Customers might then abandon their basket. Actually, what we do is, as long as you've got more than one provider set up via Bridge, we offer failover between the two of them. So transaction comes in, we try provider one in your kind of ranking order. If something goes wrong with that transaction, like the provider experiences a technical issue, we'll just fail over and try the second provider. And typically then, it will either go through or it will decline for a legitimate reason, like not enough money, etc. So that's a kind of ongoing resilience that we do on a transaction by transaction basis. And over time, we find that saves a lot of failures, sometimes just for quite specific niche things that customers experience, but ultimately improves the customer experience and means that you're much more likely to always capture the revenue, and not be kind of at the behest of payment providers having issues. Final two products. So Bridge Vault. Bridge Vault is our tokenization service. For those that aren't familiar, tokenization is basically replacing the 16-digit card number with a token. So with a kind of another load of characters which are still linked to that card number, but if intercepted by somebody else, through a data breach or whatever it may be, are completely unusable to anybody else apart from the customer and the merchant who's specifically signed up for it. So the way that it works is when you put in card number or a customer puts in a card number with Bridge, we basically call Visa or MasterCard and say, give us a token for this card number. We will then give you back that token, or we will store that token on your behalf. And then that token can be used on an ongoing basis. Reason why that's important is because you see an authorization uplift. Issuers and Visa and MasterCard trust tokens more than they do card transactions, so they're more likely to approve them. There's a reduction in fraud for the same reasons. There's security from data breaches and those kind of things. The credentials are meaningless unless you're, the specific merchant and bridge trying to use them. So if anyone else gets their hands on them, they can't do anything with them. And then finally, if you store cards on file, so let's say I put in my card number and then I keep it on file so I can use it again within my account. If my actual physical card is lost or stolen, the token that is on the account stays the same. The card number will just be updated in the background. So that means that, like, imagine your Netflix subscription, they use tokenization. So what they've got on file for me to charge me every month, if I lose my actual physical card, I don't need to re-enter it into Netflix. Actually, what they do is they just have the token updated with the new card number in the background, and they can carry on charging me without any interruption, which is great for them because it means less failed payments, and it's good for me as a consumer because it means I don't have to go in and update my card everywhere when I get a new one. So that's the kind of principle of token, and we see really, really good results in terms of performance off the back of that. Final bit on the product set is insights. So we're typically seeing all of a merchant's all of their payment data, sorry. So if all the payments are going through us, what we can start to do is say, okay, actually, we're seeing these trends in your payments. We're seeing these certain types of payments on these cards or these payment methods performing better or worse in these scenarios with these customer types, whatever it may be. We basically give you a really holistic view of how your payment performance is looking. And this is all accessible through our portal and our data team. And then what you can do with that is you can go and then change your setup. You can try new things. You can change your routing based on the data that we're giving you. So it's kind of the ability to continuously improve your kind of payment setup using real life data. And then we give you the tools to go and kind of action that data in real time. The other thing that we do is in our portal, you'll see a centralized view of all of your transactions. You can click into them, you can refund them, you can search based on customer details, etc. So we kind of give you an operational reporting capability as well that you can access. So just to jump back now to kind of the travel tech bit, Claire's going to go into it in a bit more detail. But ultimately, as I say, you'll see a kind of example of one of our live joint customers, the hosted payment page they have live, powered by Bridge. That is live and working today. And can give you access into all of those different payment methods because we will just surface them within the hosted payment page that you turn on via Bridge and Travel Tech. And in addition, if we enable a new PSP, we enable a new card provider in the background. This doesn't change at all. This payment page stays the same. We are just setting it up in the back end for you. Finally, from me, just to bring it to life, a case study. It is a real merchant. We've taken off their name for the purpose of this, but it's a real merchant we've got live today, and just wanted to talk through kind of what they were facing, why they chose Bridge, and then what they are now using us for in seeing. So this merchant is a pretty large size luxury travel merchant. They had always used one payment provider. It's a pretty legacy payment provider with really kind of old technology to the point that the checkout page that that payment provider was giving the merchant kind of looked so old school that actually a number of customers weren't trusting it. They were spending 10, 20 grand on a holiday and thinking, do I want to put it through this payment page, which, looks incredibly legacy and old fashioned. In addition, the merchant in question wanted to start looking at enabling open banking, enabling installment options via buy now, pay later, and also just adding in another payment provider so that they had optionality there, they had resilience, and they could also have a bit of commercial leverage off their existing provider. So they moved to Bridge. What we did for them was enable them with a new hosted payment page, which is branded with their own branding, their colors, their logos. We've enabled an open banking provider for them. We've enabled Trustly for them, which means that their customers can pay via bank. It saves the merchant a lot of money on those transactions. We've enabled Visa installments for them. So some customers are able to split their payments into installments, which has been great and has had a lot of use. And we've enabled a new payment provider, and they're now splitting their volume about 50-50 between the old provider and the new one, comparing performance, and they're making changes there, and also have done really well commercially out of it because now their existing legacy provider knows that they've got a new provider and therefore wants to compete for that volume that they're putting through. So it's just an example of like how, a merchant of a reasonable size who's just got one provider can actually really leverage the technology to achieve quite a lot, to achieve modernization, to achieve a saving in cost, and also to achieve resilience. Outside of that, just from a technology perspective, we're cloud hosted. We operate at least 4 nines, so 99.99% uptime. We have hosting environments all around the world. So if you're a global merchant, we'll be able to use the kind of version of our platform that's closest to you from a geographical perspective. We have 24/7, 365 support as you'd expect. And we are PCI level 1 certified, so we can take all the PCI risk of our customers, etc. And we're handling a lot of volume, as I say. So just to give a bit of kind of comfort around the kind of capability, technology, and the support that you get. That is everything from my side. So I think I will hand back to Haley
Thanks,
and
Tom.
potentially Claire. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions whenever kind of suits.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. We do have a question that's come through. Can you offer interactive voice response solutions for call center payments, taking payments over the phone?
So we don't offer them ourselves, but we have a number of third parties who integrate into us and offer that. So if you took one of their offerings, they're already hooked into Bridge, and therefore it would that kind of flow would work. So the
I'm
short
also
answer
going
is
to
yes. It's
speak. Oh, sorry,
Claire.
Tom. I'm going to
No, no,
speak
you go,
about one
Claire.
of them today as well. So it was
Even
quite
better.
quite a good question.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Over to you, Claire.
Okay, thanks, Haley. Sharing screen. Yeah, thanks, Tom. It was really great to hear more about Bridge and what it brings to the table. I do fear I may be repeating some of it, but they say it's better to hear something more than once for it to sink in. So let me walk through how this all fits together with travel tech. So what does this integration actually give you? Well, in a nutshell, it's seamless payments across your entire workflow. So there's the three words for secure, automated, and transparent. For secure, because all payments going through Bridge, hosted payment page, it keeps you compliant and your customers' data safe. From an automated perspective, it reduces the manual work wherever possible, and transparency because you've got full visibility of your transactions. So let's dig in a little bit what that looks like in practice. So this is a quick peek of a payment flow within iBoss. I've only done one snippet because the payment flow looks the same across our product suite. So it works right alongside your existing workflow. So you don't need to learn a whole new system. It just slots in where you need it. And just at the end, I will pause for a second. So this can have your own logo at the top. This is the hosted payment page. Now, when a payment is made, you'll have access to the Bridge portal, which will show all your transactions that you've made on the Travel Tech platform. It will tell you if it's failed, if it's captured, if it's been refunded, and it tells you the payment gateway that it's went through as well, the dates of transactions, and what we're sending through so that you can easily reconcile is the Travel Tech booking reference as well. So each transaction will be followed with a Travel Tech booking reference. And just move on to the next slide. So now let's talk about so the benefits to our customers. Why would you integrate with, why have we integrated with Bridge? So we've pulled out the four key benefits. So first up is an easy setup. So you're looking at a simple API configuration from our side, adding into your hosted payment page credentials to your iSell setup, and you're away. So there's no lengthy onboarding with Travel Tech, no complex technical work either. The groundwork's there. Second, I know Tom has touched on this, but yeah, I think when I've seen it work in real time for one of our customers, it's amazing to see how quick and unaffected a customer is with the payment resilience. So if you've ever had payment providers going down at a crucial moment, and I'm sure some of you have, with Bridge, you can add in the resilience with your primary payment service provider, so to keep your payments flowing. No lost bookings and no panic customers. So third is streamlining the operations. So one provider, one view, simplified reconciliations, less time spent on admin and more time spent on what actually matters. And then finally is future-ready payments. So with the hosted payment page that we have integrated, it makes adding on additional alternative payment methods easy with Bridge for the likes of Apple Pay and Google Pay as well. So this is across our product suite and with Travel Tech on where we have Bridge integrated across the platform. So from a front office, you've got iSell, which is your point of sale, and payments are captured instantly at booking stage through the Bridge's secure hosted payment page. Then there's View My Booking, your customer self-service portal, so customers can pay directly using the same secure Bridge experience. Moving on to the back office side, you have iBoss for post-booking management. Again, the same seamless process. Refunds is slightly different. It's not the hosted payment page, but it's fully automated through the API, so there's no manual processing needed. So if it's any transactions made via the hosted payment page can still be automatically refunded via the Bridge API within iBoss as well. So yeah, that goes through and you'll be able to then see that within the Bridge portal when it's been refunded as well. So it's all joined up. So if you've ever had to deal with fragmented payment systems, you'll know that this is a very good thing. Next up and last slide, what's coming down the line? So we're currently in discovery on PCI PAL integration. So that's a secure phone payment processing for those of you taking payments over the phone. This is one to watch. So we're actively exploring this and we'll share more as we progress. As Tom mentioned, they are fully integrated with Bridge. So you would see the transactions in your Bridge portal as you do for any of the other workflows once PCI PAL is integrated onto our platform. One on our radar, and it is a very hot topic, is installments. So flexible payment plans for your customers. It's something we know there's an appetite for, and we're keeping a close eye on how we can bring this into the platform. As always, we're listening to what you need. So if either of these are important to your business, please do reach out and let us know. So the more people telling us that, yeah, that's absolutely what we're looking for, then yeah, that helps build our business case to get it onto the platform sooner. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. Thanks for sticking with me and with us. I'll hand over to Hayley to run through the questions. Thanks.
Thanks, both. Thank you so much. So how do we connect to Bridge? Do we need a direct contract with Bridge and then also the payment providers that we're going to be pulling through?
Yeah, so in terms of how you would actually interact with us, I mean, obviously the travel tech team will be able to introduce you and we can have a kind of joint conversation. We would need a direct contract, so we would contract directly with yourselves as a kind of merchant customer. And then from an onboarding and kind of technical go live perspective, we would work as kind of tri-party, really hand in hand with the travel tech team to get things up and running and make sure everything's working as expected.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. And are products and services available for all markets? I know you mentioned France in your presentation.
Yeah, pretty much. So the one kind of caveat I'll give is we can work globally anywhere as a platform. It's more around the connectivity and what you need. So there's certain parts of the world where our connectivity just wouldn't be as strong. So like some of Asia and parts of LATAM, for example, where we just we might not have the connectivity that you need to really kind of service your customers well in that market. For the rest of the world, we've got volume going through the platform pretty much globally, and certainly in UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, North America, and Middle East, we're doing a lot of stuff in those countries and have a lot of really good connectivity. But as I say, if you go on our website, you can see our kind of connectivity directory, and it's also broken down by region, so you can see, in the region that you operate in, what connectivity we have as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. So no further questions. So that does conclude our webinar for today. So I will share a copy of the recording with everybody. If there are any other questions or feedback, please send them to myself or Claire. Happy to do introductions as well to Tom directly. But I'll also share your website link there as well, Tom, in the email that I send, and of course your contact details as well. But otherwise, thank you everyone for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your days. Thanks so much, Tom. Claire,
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
take care.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.